My name is Elijah Vance. I'm 65 years old. And for 40 years, I worked as a heavy-duty truck driver, hauling cargo across the United States. I spent my whole life on the highway, transporting goods from one coast to the other, always far from home, but always thinking about my family. I married Serena 38 years ago when she was barely 22 and I was 27. We met at a block party near Atlanta, Georgia, where we both grew up. She was the prettiest woman I had ever seen in my life, with those deep, dark eyes and that smile that could light up any room. I fell for her the moment I saw her. We had 3 children, Elijah Jr., who is 35 today, Mariah, who is 32, and the baby, David, who is 28. We also have 6 grandkids who are my pride and my whole reason for living. Throughout all those years of marriage, I trusted Serena completely. I had to, because my job kept me out of town for weeks at a time. Sometimes I'd be gone for 10 days, sometimes for 2 weeks, hauling freight across different states, from California to New York. It was hard, lonely work, but it paid well, and it let me give my family a good life, a house of our own, an education for the kids, stability. I thought that was enough. I thought Serena valued my sacrifice as much as I valued having a family waiting for me back home. But what I found out 3 months ago proved that I had been living a lie for years, that while I was driving thousands of miles thinking about my wife, she was building a parallel life that would have utterly destroyed me if I had known about it sooner. If you're just tuning into this story, I need you to take a deep breath, because what I'm about to tell you is something so awful that if I hadn't lived it myself, I would never believe it. Please hit that like button to give strength to this old heart that has suffered more than any man ever should. Subscribe to the channel, because these real-life stories need to be told so others can learn from our mistakes and our pain. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. It comforts me to know there are people in different corners of the world listening to the words of this trucker who thought he knew his wife. We went to church on Sundays, visited the kids, played with the grandkids, and ate dinner together. Serena was always an attentive wife, or so I thought. She'd lay out my clothes for the trip, pack me food for the road, and kiss and hug me goodbye at the door every time I left. "Be safe, my love," she would say. "Come home soon." And I'd leave with those words in my heart, driving thousands of miles with the image of my wife waiting for me at home. We talked on the phone every day when I was on the road, short calls because I was working. But we always told each other we missed each other, that we loved each other, that we were counting the days until we saw each other again. She'd tell me about her day, what she'd cooked, the calls with the kids, some TV show she'd watched, normal things about a normal life. Or so I thought. I never suspected a thing. Why would I? We had been together for almost 4 decades. At our age, you don't think about cheating or betrayal. You think about growing old together, enjoying the grandkids, retiring someday, and traveling for pleasure, not for work. I started noticing small things. Before, she would always answer right away, but now, sometimes she'd let the phone ring several times or call me back minutes later saying she was busy. When I asked her what she was doing, she always had a reasonable explanation. She was in the restroom, hanging up laundry, or watching her show, and hadn't heard the phone. I believed her because why wouldn't I? I also noticed she started dressing up more. She bought new clothes, which she didn't do often. She started painting her nails more frequently and wearing makeup, even if it was just to go to the grocery store. I told her she looked beautiful, and she responded that she just wanted to take better care of herself, that she wasn't young anymore, but she wasn't dead either. I thought it was positive. I even felt proud to have a wife who cared about her appearance. There was one detail that seemed strange, but I didn't question it at the time. Once, I came home a day earlier than planned. I usually let her know when I was close to arriving as a surprise, but this time I wanted to actually surprise her. When I walked into the house around 9 at night, she was watching television in her pajamas, nothing out of the ordinary. But when I hugged and kissed her, I felt she was tense, almost uncomfortable. I asked her if everything was okay, and she said yes. She was just startled because she hadn't expected me so early. We made love that night, but I felt something different about her. A distance that hadn't been there before, as if her body was present, but her mind was somewhere else. I thought maybe she was tired or worried about something. I didn't think too much about it. I thought it was because she missed me, because she wanted to plan the meals or clean the house. How naive I was. Her behavior with her phone changed too. Before, she'd leave her cell phone anywhere in the house, but now she always carried it with her. She put it face down on the table and put a password on it, something she'd never had before. When I asked her why, she said it was for security, that she'd been told it was important to protect her personal information. Again, a reasonable explanation that I accepted without question. She started going out more often, too. She had new friends from the church's prayer group. They met on Wednesday afternoons to study the Bible, she said. She also joined a senior women's exercise group that gathered on Monday and Friday mornings at the park. I was glad she had activities, that she wasn't lonely and bored at home while I worked. I thought it was healthy for her to have her own social life. How foolish I was for not seeing what was really happening. "Dad," he said, in a strange voice, like he was worried. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure, son. What's up?" There was an awkward silence. "Dad, are you and Mom doing okay? Is everything normal between you two?" The question took me by surprise. "Yes, David. Everything's fine. Why do you ask?" Another silence. "I don't know how to tell you this. Maybe it's nothing, but I came to visit yesterday afternoon without calling first. I knocked on the door, but no one answered. I saw Mom's car in the driveway, so I figured she was inside. I kept knocking. Finally, Mom opened the door. She was a mess, with her hair loose, wearing a robe. She said she was taking a nap, but Dad, it was around 5 o'clock in the evening. Mom never takes naps at that hour." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, but I tried to be rational. "Well, David, maybe she was tired that day. What's wrong with that? It's just that when I walked into the living room, I saw 2 glasses of soda on the coffee table, like she'd had company. I asked her if anyone had visited, and she said no, that both glasses were hers. But Dad, one of the glasses had lipstick marks, and it was a different flavor of soda than the other glass." The knot in my stomach tightened even more. "What else did you see?" "Nothing else. I stayed for a while, chatting with her, but she was nervous, like she wanted me to leave. She said she had a headache and needed to rest. I left. But Dad, something didn't feel right. And the house smelled like men's cologne. Not your cologne. A different one. Especially because when I was leaving, I saw a truck pulling away fast on the street behind the house, a black Ford F-150 that I had never seen before. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Did you see who was driving it? I couldn't get a good look. It was a man. I did see that, but he was going fast, and it was getting dark. We talked for a few more minutes. I asked him not to say anything to anyone yet, that I would handle the investigation. When I hung up, I sat in my truck with my cold dinner in front of me, unable to eat. My mind started processing all the strange little things I had noticed in recent months. The changes in her behavior, the new interest in her appearance, the more frequent outings, the phone password, the tension when I showed up unexpectedly. Everything started to fit into a horrible pattern that I hadn't wanted to see. I barely slept that night. I was parked at a rest area, in tears, staring at the ceiling of my cab, trying to convince myself that David had misunderstood the situation. Serena wouldn't cheat on me. Not after almost 40 years of marriage. Not while I was out working the highways to support our home. It had to be impossible. The next day, I called Serena as usual. I tried to sound normal, but I asked her some questions. My love, how was your day yesterday? Normal, Elijah. I went to the supermarket this morning, cleaned the house, watched my shows. Did David visit you? There was an almost imperceptible pause. Yes, he stopped by for a little bit in the afternoon. You didn't tell me you had sent him. I didn't send him. He told me he dropped by to see you. Oh yeah. He was only here for a few minutes. I had a headache and wasn't feeling well. Did you have any visitors yesterday? Another pause. No. Why do you ask? No reason, my love. Just curious. We changed the subject, but I already knew something was wrong. She had lied to me. David asked her if she had company, and she said no. And now she was telling me the same thing. But the 2 glasses, the smell of cologne, the truck speeding away, the disheveled state David found her in, everything pointed to the fact that someone had been there. Someone who had left quickly when David knocked on the door. I finished that trip on autopilot. My mind wasn't on the job. It was at home, on Serena, on the horrible possibility that she was cheating on me. I returned home that Friday as planned. Serena greeted me with hugs and kisses, just like always. She made my favorite meal. That night, we talked about everyday things. I watched her intently, looking for signs, clues, anything that would confirm or deny my suspicions. She acted completely normal. If she was deceiving me, she was an extraordinary actress. I tried her birthday, our anniversary, the kids' birthdays. Nothing worked. That in itself was suspicious. Why would she have a password that even I couldn't guess? I checked her closet. I found new underwear I had never seen her wear. Expensive lace lingerie, the kind she never wore with me. I checked her dresser drawers. I found new makeup, perfumes I didn't recognize. In the bathroom, trash can, I found a receipt from a jewelry store. It was from 2 weeks ago. She had bought a man's watch for $3,000. When I casually asked her about the receipt, telling her I had found it in the trash, she got nervous. Oh, that watch was for Elijah Jr.'s birthday, she said. I gave it to him a few days ago. But our son's birthday was in 6 months. She was lying to me again. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling in the darkness, knowing in my heart that my wife was cheating on me. The evidence was circumstantial, but there were too many coincidences piled up. I needed more concrete proof. I needed to see what was happening with my own eyes. And then a plan came to me. Plan that made me feel miserable just thinking about it, but which was necessary. I was going to fake a trip. I would tell Serena I was leaving on a trip as usual, but I would actually stay close by, watching, waiting to see what she would do when she thought I was far away. The following Monday, I announced I had a run to Houston that would last all week. Serena reacted as usual, helping me pack, preparing food for the road, but I noticed something in her eyes. A spark. It was excitement, relief. I said goodbye to her at 6 in the morning, as always. I got in my truck, pulled out of the driveway, and drove as if I were heading to work. But instead of taking the highway, I drove to the house of Clarence Bell, my lifelong friend, who lived on the other side of town. I had told him my suspicions the day before, and he had offered his help. "Brother, you can stay at my place as long as you need," he had said. "We'll find out what's going on." I parked my truck in his garage, where it couldn't be seen from the street, and I borrowed his car, an old but reliable Chevy. I put on a cap and dark sunglasses. I had let my beard grow for a few days before to change my appearance a little. I felt ridiculous, like I was in a bad movie, but I was desperate to know the truth. I drove back to my neighborhood and parked on a side street from where I could see my driveway without being too visible. It was 7:30 in the morning. Serena thought I was already on the road to Houston. And now I would wait to see what she did. 2 hours passed. I was sitting there in that car, drinking coffee from a thermos, watching my own house like a private investigator. I felt pathetic. At 9:30, I saw my front door open. Serena walked out. She was wearing tight jeans and a red blouse I didn't recognize. She had her makeup done and her hair fixed, as if she were going somewhere special. She got in her car and drove off. I followed her, keeping my distance. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. She drove toward downtown. She parked in front of a cafe and went inside. I parked on the other side of the street, where I could see inside the cafe through the windows. I watched her sit down at a table. She ordered something, and then, 10 minutes later, I saw a man walk into the cafe. He was an older man, maybe 60, well-dressed, with gray hair. He walked directly to Serena's table. They kissed. It wasn't a friendly peck. It was a kiss on the lips. A lover's kiss. I felt my whole world stop. There was the proof. My wife kissing another man in public in a cafe, thinking I was far away, driving my truck toward Houston. They sat down together. He took her hand across the table. She laughed at something he said. They looked comfortable together, familiar, like a couple who had known each other for a long time, not like two people just starting an affair. This had been going on for a while. A long time. I took out my phone and started taking pictures. I needed evidence. Photos of the kiss, of them holding hands, of the looks they were giving each other. Each photo was a stab in my heart, but I needed to document everything. The humiliation I felt at that moment is beyond words. After they ate, they left the cafe together. He put his arm around her waist as they walked toward where the cars were parked. I watched them from my position. To my horror, they didn't each get into their own car. They both got into his car, a black Ford F-150, the same one David had seen speeding away from our street. I followed him. They drove toward the outskirts of the city. My stomach was churning because I had an idea where they were going. And my worst fears were confirmed when I saw them pull into the Desert Rose Motel, a discreet place on the highway that I knew by sight but had never been to. I watched them pay at the front desk. I watched them drive toward one of the rooms, room number 12. I saw them go inside together. He had his arm around her. The door closed, and I was left sitting there in my car, parked a few feet away, staring at that closed door behind which my wife was doing God knows what with that man. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe properly. I felt such intense chest pain that I thought I was having a heart attack. Tears began to fall, and I couldn't control them. I cried like I hadn't cried since I was a boy. I cried for my destroyed marriage. I cried for the wasted years. I cried for the betrayal of the person I trusted most. I cried for the idiot I had been, working the highways while my wife slept with another man. He kissed her again before getting into his car. I took more photos. My hand was shaking so much that some came out blurry, but I managed to capture the moment. I followed him back toward the city. This time, he dropped her off at a shopping center. They kissed again before she got out of the car. She walked into the stores. I decided to follow him. I needed to know who this man was who had stolen my wife. I followed him to an upper-middle-class residential area. He drove into a large, beautiful house. I parked discreetly and wrote down the address. Then I used my phone to search public property records to find out who owned the house. The name that appeared was Victor Hawthorne. I searched for that name on social media and found him on LinkedIn. He was a certified public accountant, 62 years old. His profile said he was divorced. He had 2 grown children. He worked at an accounting firm downtown. I stared at his photos. This man, this Victor Hawthorne, was the one who was destroying my marriage. I memorized his face, every wrinkle, every feature. If this story is hitting you hard, please leave me a like. I need to know I'm not alone in processing this pain. Subscribe to the channel to hear more real stories like this. And tell me in the comments if you've ever felt this kind of betrayal. Your support helps me keep sharing these experiences. She was calmly walking around the shopping center, going into stores as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just left a motel with her lover, as if her husband weren't on some highway working to support her. I followed her when she left the shopping center and headed home. She arrived around 5 in the evening. I stayed watching from my position on the neighboring street. Nothing else happened that day. That night, I stayed at Clarence's house. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just kept looking at the photos I had taken on my phone over and over again, as if seeing them more times would change what they showed. Clarence tried to comfort me. "Buddy, I'm so sorry. Nobody deserves this." He was right. I didn't deserve this. 40 years of driving trucks, sacrificing time with my family, missing birthdays and important events of my children, all to provide a good home. And this was how she repaid me. On Tuesday, I kept watching. Serena didn't leave the house all day. I called in the afternoon, just as I always did when I was on the road. "Hello, my love. How are you?" "Good, Elijah. How's your trip going?" "Good, good. Almost to Houston." "What did you do today?" "Nothing special. Cleaned the house, watched TV, talked on the phone with Mariah." Lies. She had been locked up in the house all day, probably talking to her lover, planning their next rendezvous. Every word that came out of her mouth was venom. On Wednesday, I returned to my surveillance post early. At 10 in the morning, Serena left the house again. This time, she was dressed more casually in sweatpants and sneakers. I thought she was going to the gym or the park, like she said she did on Wednesdays. But no. She drove directly to Victor Hawthorne's house. She went in using a key. She had a key to that man's house. The level of betrayal just kept deepening. I stayed outside that house for 4 hours. 4 hours imagining what they were doing inside. 4 hours slowly dying. On Thursday, Serena went out in the morning. I followed her, expecting her to meet Victor again. But this time it was different. She went to the bank. She went inside for about 20 minutes and came out. Then she went to the supermarket, did some normal grocery shopping, and went back home. Nothing suspicious that day, but I needed more information. I needed to know how long this affair had been going on. I needed to understand the full scope of the betrayal. That afternoon, I went to a coffee shop with Wi-Fi and started investigating. I searched for more information on Victor Hawthorne. I found his accounting firm. An idea began to form in my mind. What if Serena had met him through business matters? I checked our financial records, which I had online access to, and there it was. 2 years ago, Serena had hired that accounting firm to help her with some tax paperwork. I was on the road when she did that, and she had mentioned it to me on the phone, but I hadn't paid any attention to it. Now, everything made sense. She had met him 2 years ago, and who knows when the affair started. But she had been seeing him for at least those 2 years. I splashed cold water on my face, but I couldn't wash away the image of her with that man. Friday was the day I was supposedly returning from my trip. I decided that would be the day of the confrontation. But before that morning, I needed one last piece of information. I went to the office of a lawyer Clarence had recommended. I took him all the photos I had taken and told him the whole story. The lawyer, a serious man in his 50s, reviewed everything carefully. Mr. Vance, you have very clear evidence of infidelity. In a divorce proceeding, this will play completely in your favor. We are going to protect your assets. We spent hours preparing documents. We made an inventory of all our property. The house was in both our names, but I could prove I had paid for it completely with my work. The savings, the cars, everything was documented. The lawyer prepared the divorce papers. I also hired a professional private investigator who reviewed all the information I had gathered and confirmed that it was solid. He suggested installing a hidden camera in the house to get more evidence, but I had enough. I didn't need to see any more. I had already seen too much. I parked the car a block away and walked out toward my house. My heart was pounding like a drum. My hands were sweating. I reached my front door and took out my keys. I took a deep breath. I opened the door quietly. What I saw took away the 30 years of life mentioned in the title of this story. Serena was in the living room, but she wasn't alone. Victor Hawthorne was with her. They were on my sofa. He didn't have a shirt on. She was in her underwear. They were kissing passionately, their hands exploring each other's bodies in my house, in my living room, on the sofa where I sat and watched TV with my grandkids. Time stopped. They hadn't seen me yet. They were too absorbed in what they were doing. I pulled out my phone and started recording video. I recorded for 30 seconds before they realized I was there. Serena saw me first. Her face went from pleasure to absolute shock in a fraction of a second. She screamed. Victor turned around and saw me. He went pale. He jumped up, desperately searching for his shirt. "Elijah," Serena said, covering herself with a cushion. "Elijah, it's not what it looks like." I laughed. It was a bitter laugh, full of pain. "It's not what it looks like." "Are you really going to say that when I just recorded you practically having sex in my living room?" I put the phone in my pocket. The evidence was secured. Victor found his shirt and put it on quickly. "Look, sir, I'm very sorry. I didn't—" "Shut up," I said in a voice I didn't recognize as my own. It was a cold, hard, dangerous voice. "You get out of my house right now or I'm calling the police for trespassing." He looked at Serena for support, but she was in shock, paralyzed. He grabbed the rest of his things and practically ran toward the door. Before he left, I dared to look him right in the eyes. "I hope it was worth destroying a nearly 40-year family for a few hours of pleasure." He didn't answer. He just ran out to his car and drove away. "Explain how, while I was out on the road working to maintain this house. You were in motels with that man. Explain how you have a key to his house. Explain how you welcomed him here, into our house, the place where we raised our children. 2 years. How do you know? I know everything, Serena. I've been investigating all week. I wasn't on a trip. I was here, watching you, following you, documenting your every move. I have photos of you kissing in the cafe. I have photos of you going into the motel. I have evidence of every encounter. Her face completely fell apart. Elijah, please. I didn't want this to happen, but it did. For 2 years. 2 years, Serena. While I called you every day, from the road, telling you I loved you, I missed you, while I worked double shifts so you wouldn't lack anything. While I missed time with my children because I was working. And you repaid me with this. She was sobbing uncontrollably now. I felt lonely, Elijah. You were always away, always on the road. I needed companionship. I needed to feel loved. And it didn't occur to you to talk to me? It didn't occur to you to tell me you felt lonely? It didn't occur to you to ask if we could find solutions together? No, of course not. You preferred to seek comfort in the arms of another man. I walked over to her and threw all the documents I had in my bag onto the coffee table. Divorce papers, they're already prepared. You can review them. You won't get anything from this house. You won't get any of my savings. The only thing you're taking is your clothes and your shame. Elijah, you can't do that. This house is mine too. I paid for this house with my sweat, with my work, with the hours I spent away from my family. You didn't put a single dollar into this house. And you're lucky I'm only taking away material things, because what I really want to take back is impossible to recover. My trust, my love, my years. I took suitcases out of the closet and started packing her clothes. Each garment I folded was a memory of years lived together. The dress she wore at our daughter Mariah's wedding, the blouse I gave her for her last birthday, the pants she wore when we went to visit the grandkids. Everything now contaminated with betrayal. I packed everything into the suitcases, clothes, shoes, her personal bathroom items, everything. I carried the suitcases down to the living room. Serena had gotten dressed and was sitting on the couch, still crying. Here are your things. You're leaving now. Now. Where am I going to go? That's not my problem. Maybe your CPA lover can take you in at his house. You have a key, after all. Elijah, please, just give me a few days to find a place. No, you leave now. And if you don't do it voluntarily, I'll call the police and show them the video of what you were doing here. Trespassing, adultery in the marital home. Do you want this to become even more public? She saw that I was serious. With trembling hands, she grabbed her suitcases. She stood in front of me one last time. Elijah, I'm sorry. I really am. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry I caught you. There's a difference. I opened the front door. She walked out, dragging the suitcases. I watched her get into her car. I watched her drive away. I watched her disappear down the street. And only then, when she was gone, when the house was empty and silent, did I fall apart. I dropped to my knees in the entranceway of my house and cried like I had never cried in my life. I cried for the 38 years I thought we had a real marriage, for the betrayal. I cried for the man I was, who trusted blindly. I cried for the man I had become, a spy in my own home. I cried until I had no more tears left. I called the kids. They needed to know. They arrived worried. Elijah Jr., Mariah, and David sat in the living room, the same living room where hours earlier I had found their mother with another man. I told them everything. I showed them the photos. I showed them the video I had recorded. I watched as their worlds crumbled just like mine. Mariah cried like a little girl in her husband's arms. Elijah Jr. became furious, punching the wall, shouting that he couldn't believe his mother was capable of something like that. David, my youngest son, who had been the first to notice something was wrong, remained silent with tears streaming down his cheeks. "Where is Mom now?" Mariah asked between sobs. "I don't know, and I don't care. I kicked her out of the house. She left a few hours ago." "Dad, are you okay?" Elijah Jr. asked. "No, I'm not okay. I don't know if I'll ever be okay again, but I'll survive. I've survived hard things in life. I'll survive this too." We spent hours talking that night. My children supported me completely. They understood my decision. They were heartbroken by what their mother had done, but they stood by me. Elijah Jr. offered to stay with me that night. I refused the offer. I needed to be alone. I needed to process everything in silence. When they left, I walked through the empty house. Every corner held memories. The kitchen where Serena prepared meals, the living room where we watched TV together, the bedroom where we had slept thousands of nights. Everything felt contaminated now. Everything felt fake. I wondered how many of those nights she had been thinking about him. How many times she had kissed me while thinking of another man. How many lies she had told over the years. She left voice messages apologizing, saying she hadn't known I was coming back, that he was suffering too. I blocked him everywhere. I wasn't interested in anything he had to say. The legal process moved quickly. The lawyer filed the divorce papers with all the evidence. Serena hired her own lawyer, but when he saw the photos, the videos, the recordings, her lawyer advised her to accept the terms. There was no point in fighting. The evidence was irrefutable. A month later, I got the news that Serena had rented a small apartment in a different part of the city. She had moved there. I also found out through David that she had ended her relationship with Victor Hawthorne. Apparently, when everything became public, when the scandal exploded, he wanted nothing more to do with her. He had used her, and when things got complicated, he abandoned her. Part of me felt a dark satisfaction in knowing that. She had destroyed our marriage for that man, and he didn't even have the courage to stand by her when everything came out. Serena tried to contact the children multiple times. Elijah Jr. and Mariah blocked her completely. David, being the most sensitive, agreed to see her once. He told me afterward that she was crying, begging for forgiveness, pleading with them to forgive her. But even David couldn't forgive her. He couldn't forget what he had seen, what he now knew. His image of his mother had changed forever. Serena's sister called me furious, telling me I was a cruel man for leaving her with nothing. I sent her the photos. She didn't call back. Serena's mother, a very elderly lady, called me crying. That call did hurt. She had been like a second mother to me all these years. "Elijah, my son, I don't know what to say to you. I'm so ashamed of what my daughter did. I never raised her to be like this. I don't know where I went wrong." I told her it wasn't her fault, that Serena was an adult woman responsible for her own choices. I told her that I would continue to love and respect her, that my problem was with Serena, not with her family. The lady thanked me through her tears. In the community where I had lived for decades, the scandal was huge. In small towns, everyone knows everyone. The story of the trucker's unfaithful wife spread like wildfire. Some people looked at me with pity, others with respect for having had the courage to end the marriage. There were some who criticized my decision, saying that at our age, After so many years, I should have forgiven her. But most people understood. Most recognized that no man should tolerate that betrayal. Serena became the topic of conversation for months. People saw her at the grocery store and avoided her. She lost her friends from the prayer group. She lost her place in the community. She lost everything. Just as I had lost the illusion of having a real marriage. Other times, the silence is deafening. My children visit me regularly. They are worried about me. The grandkids are still my greatest joy. When they come to visit, the house fills up with life again. They asked about their grandmother. I've told them that Grandma is living somewhere else now, that Grandpa and Grandma aren't living together anymore. The older ones, those who are old enough to understand, know more details. The little ones just know things have changed. Matthew, the oldest grandson, who is 19 now, told me recently, "Grandpa, I admire your strength. Not just any man would have had the guts to do what you did." His words moved me. I've learned several lessons from this terrible experience. First, I learned that blind trust can be dangerous. I trusted Serena so much that I never questioned anything. I never paid attention to the signs. I should have been more alert. Second, I learned that people can change. Or maybe they were always a certain way, and we just didn't see it. The Serena I thought I knew perhaps never existed. Or she existed but transformed into someone else. I don't know. Maybe I'll never know. Third, I learned that self-respect is priceless. I could have decided to forgive, to stay quiet, to keep living the lie, but that would have meant losing my dignity. I preferred the pain of separation to the pain of living, knowing I was a coward. And fourth, I learned that loneliness is not the worst thing that can happen to you. The worst thing is being accompanied by someone who betrays you. I prefer 1,000 times to be alone in this house with a clear conscience than to be with someone who lies to me every day. On the bad days, memories flood in, the unanswered questions, the pain of the betrayal. But even on the bad days, I don't regret what I did. I did the right thing. I defended my dignity. Serena tried to contact me 2 months ago. She sent me a long letter explaining that she had started therapy, that she was working on herself, that she now understood the damage she caused. She asked for forgiveness, not to get me back, the letter said, but genuinely for the pain she caused me. I read the letter once and put it away. I didn't reply. Maybe someday I can forgive her, not for her, but for me, to release that weight of resentment. But that day hasn't arrived yet, and I don't know if it ever will. Forgiveness is complicated. People talk about forgiveness as if it's easy, something you have to do to be a good person. But forgiving a 2-year betrayal, forgiving the thousands of lies, forgiving being made a fool of while I worked to support my family, that doesn't get forgiven overnight. Maybe it can be forgiven with time, or maybe not. And that's okay too. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't ignore the signs. Don't be like me, who ignored months of strange behavior because I didn't want to see the truth. If you're in a relationship and you're unhappy, if you feel like something is missing, talk, communicate, seek couples counseling. Look for honest solutions, but never, ever betray your partner. Infidelity doesn't just destroy the person who's betrayed. It destroys entire families. My children are traumatized. My grandchildren will grow up knowing their grandmother was unfaithful. That leaves a mark. And if you are being unfaithful right now, stop. Think about the consequences. Think about the pain you will cause when the truth comes out. Because believe me, it always comes out. The truth has a way of revealing itself eventually. Always. I discovered the truth because I faked a trip. But even if I hadn't, then something would have eventually happened. A mistake, a slip-up, someone seeing us. The truth would have come out anyway. It was only a matter of time. I also want to tell the men and women who are being betrayed right now without knowing it. It is not your fault. I blamed myself for weeks. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? I should have worked less and been home more. But the truth is that infidelity is a decision made by the unfaithful person. It is not the victim's fault. Serena chose to be unfaithful. She could have chosen to talk to me about her loneliness. She could have chosen to ask for couples counseling. She could have chosen to honestly get a divorce if she was no longer happy, but she chose to betray me. That was her decision, not mine. Life is full of difficult experiences, and sharing them helps us heal. Tell me in the comments, have you been through a similar betrayal? Do you know someone who has lived this? What would you do in my situation? I'm very interested in reading your experiences and opinions. If you feel that my story has given you something, you can support the channel with a super thanks. Every contribution helps me continue sharing these experiences, which, although painful, can help others navigate similar situations. Also, tell me where you are watching this video from and what time it is there. It comforts me to know that my words are reaching different parts of the world, that maybe somewhere, someone who is going through the same thing I went through finds comfort in knowing they are not alone. Remember, dignity is the most valuable thing we have. Don't sacrifice it for anyone. Don't tolerate betrayal. Don't live a lie out of fear of being alone. I, Elijah Vance, at 65 years old, can tell you that being alone with dignity is 1,000 times better than being accompanied in humiliation. Yes, the house feels empty. Yes, there are difficult nights, but I can look at myself in the mirror every morning and be proud of the man I see. I made the hard choices. I defended my worth. I did not allow the betrayal to continue. And even though I lost 30 years of my life in the shock of that discovery, I gained something more valuable: my self-respect. No one can take that from me. Thank you for listening to me. May God bless you and protect you. May He always guide you on the path of truth, honesty, and respect. And may you never have to live the pain I lived. But if you do live it, remember that you are stronger than you think, that the pain passes, that life goes on, and that you deserve better than to live in lies.